Hello, I'm Daniel, and welcome to the Emunah Project. We're continuing our series of videos with respect to the prohibition against idolatry. And we are going to the Rambam's, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon's monumental work, Mishnah Torah, and especially in his book, Hilchos Avodas Kochavim. This is the laws of the Abdei Kochavim, the star worshippers. It's a way of saying idolatry. The more common expression is avodah zara, but we're going to Hilchos Kochavim, and we are going to go through his list of the various commandments. As I indicated in a previous video, the prohibition against idolatry includes 51 separate commandments, 2 positive, 48 negative. Not all of them are applicable today. Some of the gods referred to simply don't exist anymore. They don't have a cult following. Some of the commandments are not within our ability to fulfill. Some, all of them apply to Jews. Many of them apply to Bnei Noach. But the 51 commandments, and here they go. The 51 commandments. Number 1, not to show interest in the worship of false gods. I mean, far from worshiping false gods, you're not even supposed to show an interest in false gods. The principle is you are allowed to study for the purposes of knowing, but not for the purposes of doing it or performing it. Number 2, not to stray after the thoughts of one's heart or the sight one's eyes behold. This is, of course, from the third paragraph of the Shema, the book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 39, where it says, don't go achrei levavchem, achrei enehem. Don't go after your hearts, and don't go after your eyes. Why? Because your heart and your eyes will lead you astray. 3, not to curse God. Bnei Noach, this is one of the big 7. Do not curse God. This is the prohibition against blasphemy. Number 4, not to worship false gods with the types of service with which they are customarily served. Don't serve false gods, other gods. In Hebrew, Elohim Acharim, other gods are by definition false gods. These are gods that are not known traditionally to the Jewish people. Don't worship them in the way in which they are normally served. Some gods referred to in the Torah, Peor, have rather disturbing and disgusting practices, and even the ones that do not worship these gods and don't even do the customs and practices associated with serving them. It's not for us. Number 5, not to bow down to false gods. We learned in a previous video that's not only are you not supposed to bow down to idols, you're not supposed to do something that even looks like you're bowing down to an idol. The example, if someone drops his wallet or drops her purse in front of a statue, you're in the Vatican, you're walking by Michelangelo's La Pietà, and you drop your valuables, there are people bowing down. There's people kneeling. If you lean down, if you kneel down to pick up your wallet, if you bow down to pick up your purse, it looks as if you're bowing down to the idol. Not even if it looks like it. Even though your actions are perfectly innocent, don't do it. Kick it off to the side, whatever. Just, you have to be careful of maras ayin. It doesn't look good. Even though what you're doing is perfectly innocent, it doesn't look good. Someone viewing it may misunderstand it. So number 5, don't bow down to false gods. 6, do not make an idol for yourself. Don't carve any images. Don't make any statues, any molten images for yourself. And also, number 7, don't do it for other people's. You don't get off in a technicality saying, oh, I'm making this idol on contract for somebody else. No, you're not supposed to make it for yourself, and you're not supposed to make it for anyone else. 8, not to make images even for decoration. There is one secular Jew I know, and she has displayed rather proudly on her mantle statuettes of Egyptian gods and goddesses. The one that I recognized, of course, was the god Anubis. This is the man's body with the head of a jackal, the god of death, I believe. As a work of art, very nice, but it was a carving, an image of a false god. Can't have it. So not even for decoration. She wasn't part of an Egyptian cult. To her it was pretty. It was a work of art. 9, not to persuade others to worship false gods. This is known as an enticer, someone Jewish who entices another Jew away from God, away from Judaism. This is called a mesite. There are two characters, a mesite and a mediach. A mesite entices one person. A mediach is a Jew who entices an entire a group of people, an entire community. For example, those who on staff for Jews for Jesus, a messianic congregation leader who's Jewish, who's enticing an entire community away. That's a mediach. One-on-one, mesite. Both you will see in the commandments coming up. These are considered in Judaism the lowest of the low, and the further commandments will make clear of that. So don't entice. Don't persuade others to worship false God. Don't take them away from Judaism. Don't take them away from God, the Creator, the Father. 10. This is one of the laws that no longer apply. We're not in a position to do this. 10. To burn an apostate city. This is one of the positive commandments. Burn down an apostate city. Put away the torches. Don't torch a village or a town because it's full of heretics. That's not within our power. Even in the old days, you required a judgment from the Sanhedrin. This is not you can't take justice into your own hands, even under the old law. Again, these aren't old laws. Some of these laws we're not able to perform, but they're all still in effect. Related to number 10, burning an apostate city, don't rebuild it. You burn it down and then don't rebuild it. Leave it as a ruin. 12, do not derive benefit from any of its property. Don't burn it down, knock it down, and then use the stones to build something else. Use the salvageable lumber, the plumbing for something else. No, you leave it to waste. 12, do not derive benefit from any of its properties. 13, not to persuade a single individual to worship a false god. Again, this is related to the mesite. Don't entice someone, don't persuade someone to worship a false god. Don't persuade a single individual to worship false gods. Number 9 is don't persuade others, mediach, I presume from the plural, not to persuade a single individual, mesite. Related, number 14, not to love a mesite. You're not supposed to love a mesite, even if it's a family member. Don't love a mesite. And further, number 15, not to reduce one's hatred for a mesite. If that hatred should always be strong. It should not lessen over time. 16, not to save the life of a mesite. If a mesite is drowning, you're not supposed to save him. It'll give you an idea of just how serious this offense is, and all these laws concerning a mesite and mediach. 17, not to advance any arguments on his behalf. If the mesite is being tried by the Sanhedrin for being a mesite, you are not supposed to give evidence for the defense. You can't help him out. And similarly, number 18, if you have evidence for the prosecution, if you have evidence that would further go toward the case toward convicting him, you can't be quiet. You have to come forward and give that evidence. Don't withhold information that will lead to his conviction. 9, not to prophesy in the name of false gods. Don't prophesize in the name of a false god. Don't say, well, I'm speaking for Baal because I'm with Jews for Baal, and he says this. Can't do it. You can't prophesize in the name of a false god. And number 20, not to listen to anyone who prophesizes in the name of false gods. If there's Jews for Baal on the corner, don't even listen to them. Don't read their tracts. Just ignore them, and don't listen to anything they say. 21, not to give false prophecy, even in the name of God. So if you're saying that you're prophesying in the name of Hashem, the Creator, the Father. If you can't give a false prophecy, you can't, even if it's God. So not only are you not allowed to prophesy in the name of a false god, hi, I'm speaking chas v'sholom on behalf of Moloch, even if it's the God, you can't give a false prophecy. You don't get points just because you give me a false prophecy for God. As a matter of fact, it makes it worse. 22, not to fear executing a false prophet. In Deuteronomy 13, it says when there's a prophet and a dreamer for dreams, and he does miracles, actual mamish miracles, literal miracles, not card tricks, and then he tries to entice you, he has the penalty for that. It says you're supposed to kill him. This isn't a lynching. If a person is convicted by the Sanhedrin, by the court, and is sentenced to death, and you participate in it, you should not fear executing a false prophet. 23, not to swear in the name of a false god. Don't take, in court, when you put your hand on the Bible, you swear to tell the truth. Don't swear in the name of a false god. 14, not to perform the deeds associated with an Ov. Now, Ov and Yudoni, this is going to be the subject of its own video. These aren't sorcerers, these are necromancers. They were mediums. They would contact the spirits of the dead. In the first book of Samuel, chapter 28, King Saul seeks out a sorceress, sometimes miscalled the Witch of Endor. This woman is described as an Ashes Baalas Ov, a woman who is a master of we'll get into it in a later video, what this kind of necromancy was. The people who did it were very powerful, strictly forbidden. Don't perform the deeds associated with being of. Don't be an of. And similarly, number 25, not to perform the deeds associated with the Yudoni, also a form of necromancy, contacting the spirits of the dead, bringing forth the spirits of the dead. At this point, they're more or less social and religious and historical curiosities, but it's important to know them because who knows what will come in the future. Maybe we will run into some time in the future where people will try to hold themselves out as being mediums and contacting spirits of the dead using similar methodology. Again, we're learning it for the purposes of knowing about it. Number 26, not to offer to Molech. I made reference to the god Molech. This was a particularly horrific idolatrous cult. You'll see it in the Torah several times. It will say, do not allow your children to pass through the fires, through the flames to Moloch. This was an idolatrous cult where the idolaters would sacrifice their children. Worse, they would burn their children alive as sacrifices to Moloch. Horrible. Don't offer to Moloch. 27, not to erect a pillar for the purposes of worship. In the old days, this was popular. Setting up pillars, setting up large stones for the purposes of worship. They do it, we don't do it. Number 28, not to prostrate oneself on a hewn stone. In the old days, they would carve stones, shape stones, and part of the avodah zarah, part of the idolatry, was to lie on the stone, prostrate yourself on the hewn stones. And number 29, not to plant an Asherah tree. This is referred to several times in the Torah about planting Asherah trees. Cut down Asherah trees. Don't allow them there. Again, whether the Asherah trees was the focus of the worship or whether it was the object of the worship, the point is, don't do it. We'll be getting into the remaining commandments. We left off at 29. We're going to start with 30. Until then, on behalf of the Emunah Project, I'm Daniel, and thank you too much.